If there is one thing that affects good junglers and bad junglers, it's the ability to build correctly for what your champion needs in order to carry. And while pro players and high elo players and many people get itemization completely wrong, there are some OTPs and mains that have found a way to cook in a way that nobody else has before to use the strengths of a champion in a completely unique perspective. And so in this video, we will go over some completely weird and strong OP Korean high elo builds. This means that they have to be high elo career, they have to be builds that make sense on the champion, and it can't just be ultimate bravery, although we will talk about that. So let's start off with Vi, because Vi is a popular champion and the rune set on your screen now, and of course the ability maxes are absolutely standard stuff. However, while we are very much in the Eclipse, Sundered Sky, build Bruiser, build Sustain, this player, as you can see, loves the Ghostblade, Profane Hydra, and Edge of Night technology. Now occasionally they will of course build Sundered Sky and build normally, and they will obviously go Trinity Force first and the legitimate build, but half the time they're actually going the full-on damage lethality build. And that's the thing about these players here. Yeah, they use these builds a lot, but they also mix in actual builds when the time is right. And in most situations here, if you have Electrocute, half the time this player does, then you can go ahead and one-shot absolutely any ADC that might, be irritating you a little bit too much. Here's the thing about Vi. When you snowball damage correctly and you have a stronger early game, that Q cooldown is so damn low and that R is so point and click that not a lot of champions can actually peel you if you are able to get ahead of them by 14 minutes. Remember 6,000 gold by 14 minutes, you hit that. And you're building Ghostblade, Profane Hydra, Edge of Night. Really, who's stopping you if there's no good peel? That's the downside. If you don't actually end up closing by 2025 and you actually end up against a comp that wants to 5v5 and you are in, then you will die very quickly. Then you will not have that execution to win the game. And so even though Electrocute and Hail of Blades are better with this build path, you can still go Conqueror to give yourself a little bit of that sustained damage, and obviously the Precision Tree and the Booties and Cosmic if you so desire. But for this player, it's an absolutely standard build path, nothing's too strange, it's all about maximizing the damage. Now let's start off with a brief section on something not too crazy. I want to save a bit of the crazy for later in the video, and trust me, I got a spicy one. But as always, learning more about how to jungle with these strategies that I'm talking about and becoming the savant you need it to be, the best way is always to go through Virkayu.gg. Not only do I have a free jungle improvement resource, I also have a dedicated program with jungle video courses, jungle coaching, coaching classes, a jungle VOD library, special weekly content you'll see nowhere else, as well as all of this hosted in a private jungle Discord. And if there is one thing I'm good at, it's making junglers go from low elo to high elo, as seen by the great number of success stories from the end of last season and already the beginning of season 14. So to climb faster than everybody you know and to jungle diff every game you play, head to Virkayu.gg or click the link in the description below. Now the next player we have here is a Zac player who, as we all understand, is great with AP ratios, has a lot of sustain, has a lot of damage, although they're trying to buff and change him again, but he'll always be what he always is. And while this isn't as full AP as we might see certain people on Twitter go, we obviously have here the Rockabelt Sunfire Abyssal Mask. Now the Abyssal Mask is obviously goated in these kinds of situations because of the amplification of AP damage that you now do with Rockabelt, but you're going to do more damage with this and you're going to tank less. But the point is that you have more agency for early damage, and then you can tank more later when you have that lead. Because if you snowball correctly on Zac and these kinds of champions, Nudu included, the AP item first is always going to enable you to keep the snowball going, because people will die and you're still reasonably tanky naturally. However, as the game goes on and they have a lot more damage, your kit will show its weaknesses, and thus your tankiness, if it doesn't exist, will mean you get blown up, much like the Vi in the previous section. If she goes in with that build and hasn't gotten such a big lead where she can just one tap and get pentakills, then she will die. And by the way, you still obviously max E into the W, nothing changes in that regard. But this guy is 1000 LP in Korea, so this build is, working for what would seem like zero reasons. But Protobelt, despite the fact that everyone went down on it after the mythic nerfs, because it went down, the changes in item passives that they did a while back kind of normalized a lot of these situations, and even Fiddlesticks mains are realizing, hey, if I just go the item that's good on me for mobility, for damage, for HP, for AP, then I'm better and I can just keep being myself. And Zac has realized, you know what, why go Leandries? Want to think a little deeper and say, the mobility here that enables me for not only damage, but also Q slapping buttocks, and also R damage Mega Flash Disruption, as well as, picking up your little blobbies if you want a Rockabelt to save a blobby to heal yourself. This gives him a lot of utility options in these scenarios. Now, obviously, you're going to do your Randuins, you're going to have perhaps Knight's Vow Tech, that's also very good at the moment. But this guy absolutely understands how to snowball on Zac early, use the active and proto belt very efficiently. I still think Leandry's is a better way to go, or full tank is a better way to go, obviously. Those are objectively the best ways to go. But the point of this video is crazy Korean builds that legitimately work. This guy, 1000 OP Korea, with Sork boots, by the way. We might have not put that in the graphic, although I'll make sure I do that, so never mind. Literally huge. Well, maybe literally small because you might get lower HP from being less tanky, so you literally go smaller as Zac, but hey, you know how it goes. Okay, just before we get into the actual hilarious build, the really nutcracker build, I'm going to talk about Udyr here, because Udyr we mentioned in the hidden OP jungle video, super strong champion overall, go tank with Leandry's, much like the same reason for Zac. Cool stuff, right? Obviously, I did showcase the AD variants. You're seeing some of the skill maxes here. The same way we go in this guy's build, you would go in that build, but there we would build Titanics and Sterex and things that make you AD focused, but fightery. This guy goes Hail of Blades, Stridebreaker, Opportunity, and Edge of Night. He likes a Stridebreaker rush, just like a lot of people do, for the slow, for the HP, for the Tiamat. I'm able to farm faster, I'm able to clap people quicker. The Stride gives that early mobility, you can stick to targets, and it gives attack speed, which is obviously godlike when you're maxing Q. The good scalings on Q also means that you can go full AD with the rest of your builds. Now, they did nerf this, and I did mention in the hidden OP video that that's why we're going fighter builds and not full on assassin builds. But that's the thing about this champion's Q. It's still absolutely ridiculous on the max HP scaling with AD. And so the Awakening Q will severely melt people with a lethality spike. Because Opportunity gives you a huge boost of lethality before you go in, and it's got that cooldown timer, as long as you are using that E, which you max second, to engage properly, to get Awakening Q, you will have maximum health damage, which then translates over to physical damage, because remember, that's not the same thing. The max health is the thing that it scales with, and then the damage output here is physical. And because that has such a supreme AD scaler, well, what exactly are you gonna do to a guy when he's got Cyclist Sword, max lethality, and Edge of Night, which means you're not actually gonna interrupt him in combat with your disengage or stuns, and then he just runs at your face and presses Q. It's not like the old days with Prowler's Claw where you get literally one tap in half a frame, but it's not that far off. And the thing is, he plays the same as exactly regular Udyr. He doesn't change the way he's playing. Now, when we talk about Leandry's and tank, we talk about the fighter AD builds, which again, you're still squishier, but they give you the best way to play 1v9 with split push components. This guy is just even more squishy, does even more damage, can easily be more assassin based, and has way more split push power than any of those builds. His team fighting presence is as such not as dominant. Although if you needed me to explain that, then I can't help you. The wild flex for this one is that when you go 4th and 5th items, sometimes he likes to go for the Moor, he sometimes likes to go for the Sterags. That's when you need to adapt based upon who you're facing. You're not typically going to go full assassin after that. You're using the 6,000 gold at 40 minutes, then the 9,000 to 10,000 gold spike thereafter to dominate, make picks, split push, and end. But the ability maxes, the way we play the champion, none of that changes. It's just a way of saying, why don't I really power up that Q-AD ratio? Why don't I really use the attack speed, every auto attack hitting with way more intensity than if I wasn't building this way? As such, you drop one of his other points down to be a bit weaker, but you max one of the other strengths. The most important thing for these kinds of things is not to go too far, which is why I mentioned the Moor and the Sterags. Because for example, if you're a champion that likes movement speed, eventually that will scale out. So there's no real point going from 600 movement speed to 900 movement speed. You might as well get other stats. And of course, the utility here is that it gives you plus 5% bonus movement speed regardless, which Udyrs always love. Again, stickiness is a huge factor. But the passive there, when you get a takedown or kill against an enemy champion, within 3 seconds of damaging them, this will grant you that 150 bonus movement speed. So now I've got a way to engage into fights, one-tap people, that gives me utility to stick and run away, and I got a built-in phase rush exit. I'll take it. That's an extreme example, but the point is, I need to explain that because the next build here we have is Poppy. Now we all know Poppy is someone who likes to go Electrocute, Hail of Blades, Dark Harvest, and then build full tank. Sundered Sky is obviously good on her, Sterex can work, but ideally she's still that fighter off tank kind of disengaged, disrupt champion. However, this here player has decided, you know what? She's an assassin. And not only that, I'm gonna rush Moby Boots 100% of the time. That's right, Moby Boots. Legitimately, in 2024, someone is buying Moby Boots, and that's it. This is an assassin tier build made for burst all-ins rather than sustained fights. You have to know when dash is used so you can actually use your W. You have to remember the W gives you that bonus resistance as actually lowers an HP, so I'm already tanky, right? I have Electrocute for guaranteed hardcore damage. I'm just the person that was Skarna before Skarna. She was also the Vex before Vex, but that's another story. This is a Q max rotation. Don't forget to pick up your Oreo cookie for that free shield into E. Now, what we like to do here is we go Cyclo's Sword. This means you can nuke anyone off the map with a CC chain and obviously Electrocute proc. And that's where the Cycler Sword obviously comes in. You got the 55 attack damage, the ability haste for rotations because, you know, high cooldowns, you want to make sure that you're moving in and out of fights with as much damage as possible, and obviously lethality. Now, the thing is about the Cycler Sword is that the energy stacks, a kind of built-in fleet footwork mechanic, does give you an extra bonus physical damage on hit and apply a 99% slow. That means that once you go in fully energized, even if you're maybe not able to get that E initially, you still have a lot of sticking power because they're, you know, stuck and going really, really slowly. And when people go slowly, you can hit more spells, and then your team can hit more spells, and then you can maybe slap them into the wall. Or you can just slap them into the wall first, and then they can't run away because they're slowed. You get it, right? Here's the thing with this guy's playstyle though, it is absolutely super aggressive compared to many junglers. Low CS per minute, but high KP very, very often. And again, he's in high elo career. The Moby boots enable him to move around the map while other champions who are maybe farming and playing more balanced and more intelligent like we do, he's playing like a complete psychopath, but even worse than the exact same video I made on this topic. That video was at least somewhat hinged, this is totally unhinged. But after this, he obviously doesn't go around building more lethality. He says, look, Sterek's Gauge, Dead Man's Chest, bit of tanky itemization, maybe I can go with, you know, Ghost Blade or an Edge of Night if I'm really super far ahead, but otherwise I'm really most of the time looking to flex my itemization after the Cycler Sword. I'm going to use the Electrocute, I'm going to use that lethality spike, dominate the map, run around killing everybody 12 times, have 2 CS per minute, not really, it's more like 4, but basically 4 CS per minute in this year feels like 2 CS per minute. And because the damage profile is so disgusting, because there's so much CC, and because then he builds tanky, no one can actually kill him. Because the Poppy has enough damage to actually go ahead and kill someone, and then when you build tank after that with Sterek's, you got good tenacity, good HP, a huge ass shield, increasing scaling on your resistances on that W, and a knockback and knockout. What exactly are people doing to you when this player executes well? Obviously, there's an element of coin flip, but I made a video on this, so I'll leave that below and you can basically learn how to play that style with this build. Now let's dial the crazy back just a little bit quickly because that was too much for my brain, those 2 in a row. rek'sai has obviously the regular build paths that we like with the Sundered Sky, and we've got the Eclipse, boring a little bit. What if we went with Titanic Hydra Rush into Eclipse, into perhaps a Sterek's, or maybe a Sundered Sky, maybe just a Morph Mortias? What effectively this is a simple, crazy alternative to the regular rek'sai style. Do I fully advocate for Titanic over Stride? No, but again, that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to bring you unique and interesting builds from Korea that you can try that maybe you prefer over stereotypical builds, provided you understand where those strengths lie. The rek'sai rune set, the same. The ability maxes, the same. Nothing changes. Same playstyle, same activity, same spike with the Tiamat as well. The difference is we want to have that farming tempo, but more HP and a cleave passive in those fights versus having any sort of stick ability or an attack speed boost, because even though we do enjoy that scaling of attack speed now, what if you just wanted to be a bit more HP AD fighter? And obviously the Eclipse is, you know, that's a boring one. We all know the max HP passive, the shield, the stats it gives, has always been a really good item for years. Sterek's Gauge is the one that we go next, and obviously you would do this anyway on rek'sai most of the time. Obviously you can go Black Cleaver. This player only goes Black Cleaver about 7.5% of the time, and 98% of the time is going Titanic and does not build at all Stridebreaker. That's more the interesting point there. Now very quickly, I wanted to talk about Pantheon because while he was in the Hidden OP Jungler video last year, he's not been as successful recently other than going in other roles. In this particular case, it's not saying, hey, look at this unique build, and it's more like, hey, look at this unique pick and this build. The standard max stuff, and obviously going with the Eclipse, Black Cleaver into Shojin, this is what this player likes to play. Now the interesting thing is he will sometimes go Swifties. Now not a lot, but I do enjoy pointing it out because Swifties for me are always one of my favorite builds. I love the slow resist, I love having more movement speed. It is by far one of the most OP stats in the game that people mostly underrate and don't think about. If you can't be somewhere on time and stuff happens without you, what's the point? If you're in something and you need to be able to move quickly to navigate around it and you can't, then what's the point? And if you have point and click ability CCs for ganks, you kind of want to be in a position to maximize that point and click CC, which is what he does. Great at jewels, great at taking objectives, really amazing semi-global ganks after level 6. So this is less, hey, look at this unique build, and more, hey, look, you can actually still use Pantheon in the jungle. I would advise, though, you are playing a bit more hybrid, not AFK farm. Yes, you can do that, but you're playing the same way you've always done. High rotations, decent itemization, but the key thing, again, much like the Poppy and everything else, is snowball your ass off and close games out. Do not wait to scale, do not loiter, do not go farming Krugs when you have a huge ass lead. Keep the pressure up, win games. Now that we've had a few normal things with slight variations on the weird OP Korean high elo builds or champions, let's go with Nunu. And no, this is not a Nunu that you know, this is a different one. He's Russian, obviously Russian than Leandri is the standard first item you go on Nunu, but his twist is in that he goes as Zhonya's second. That's because it gives resistances plus more AP, meaning more healing, damage, and more shield on your ultimate. Now, we're all used to the full AP and the rocket belt and things like that, but when you go with true off-meta build that allows you to be Challenger, you have to discuss why. You max the same damn abilities, none of that changes as well, but here's the thing. As you would have noticed, the runes are subtly different. We have Resolve there plus Conditioning, and since he rushes Boots of Lucidity as well as taking Transcendence, he focuses a lot more on spamming Q for more heal and more damage. So instead of having tankiness through itemization, he has what we can call pseudo-tankiness through what might feel like infinite sustain because of the high rotations and high refunds on the cooldowns from Transcendence. And that's the thing that people don't understand about champions like this. When they play these hyper squishy builds, they have to shore up the weaknesses that they're compromising, in this case tankiness and the ability to, survive and thrive. This play offsets that by going for way more cooldown and saying, look, if I just Q more things, then I can heal and stay alive and still do the same damage. Tricky playstyle, a lot of focus on your cooldowns, muscle memory on that, and executing probably every single game. But because you are quite squishy when you do this kind of stuff and the item's really weird to rush, he goes with the Jack Show second. Now, because he can stay in combat quite a long time and he's got the stasis from Zhonya's, the resistances that he's getting in his build, thanks to obviously everything we've already mentioned, means that the guy does become quite difficult to kill even with this somewhat weird itemization choice. And he can also then decide, look, I'm really winning the game. Do I need a Warden's Mail? Do I need a Koenig Rückern? Or can I just go, for more Leandries? Really, that's a decision he makes, but the playstyle is very interesting. He amplifies all of the healing and basically offsets some of the build path and the craziness of full AP Nunu and fuses it with a tank style. But at the same time, this is very difficult to execute. You have to understand target swapping at a completely different level. Because now you're not only trying to apply your passive and peel, for your carries and everyone on your team, but you also have to make sure you're using your Q as much as possible and all of your cooldowns all the time. And you'd think this guy psycho ganks like the Poppy does, but no, in the games we looked at, he basically has 6 CS per minute, maybe sometimes 5.9, 5.8, sometimes a little bit above. It's a balanced playstyle. It centers around his ability to play win con for himself and his teammates while doing damage and tankiness. He's offset some of the weaknesses of full AP with the itemization of rune choices, and that's exactly what crazy builds are meant to do. But if your decision making sucks, it doesn't matter what you do, so go take this test right now.